A street is an environment much like a river is or a pond. And if you cut off its lifelines or its access to rejuvenation and resources, then you end up with a sick river or a sick pond.
Hastings Street was ablaze with neon signs in the 1940s and 50s. The street bustled with people, entertainment, and businesses. But when the interurban streetcar stopped running in 1958, people who used to come downtown by way of Hastings Street changed their route. The same year, the head office of the BC Electric Company moved west from Hastings to the Granville area, and other businesses followed suit. Gradually, through the late 50s and 60s, Vancouver's commercial focus shifted to Granville, leaving Hastings in the throes of a slow downward shift.
The cumulative effect of all of that activity was about 15,000 people a day disappeared from the streets of the downtown east side. Any streetscape that suffers that loss of pedestrian traffic is going to suffer. All of your walk-in shops, your hat shop, your barber shop, your coffee shop, etc., is going to see a decline in business.
As the neighborhood started losing its commercial footing, people began to associate the decline with the neon signs left behind. By the 1960s, newspaper columnists were slamming what they called Vancouver's grotesque neon jungle.
Opinion is shaped into not celebrating what we actually have, but getting rid of it, where suddenly people are condemning sort of the mess of billboards, the mess of signs and things like that, which then opens the door to the 1974 sign bylaw.
In response to shifting attitudes towards neon signs, Vancouver City Council passed a sign bylaw that restricted or eliminated signs across the city.
We've seen pictures of other cities where urban planners have decided to strip all of the stores of their ethnic signs. So you're in a neighborhood and you just don't know where you are. The neighborhood has no character. And it was like that when they started taking the neon away.
The bylaw allowed a handful of older neon signs to be grandfathered in, but life on Hastings Street was never the same.
The Blue Eagle Cafe down on Hastings, that's actually an interesting place because it encompasses very much the history of coffee shops and cafes on Hastings. We start to see a shift in any number of dynamics in the neighborhood, and we start to see that downward spiral. One of the places that suffered greatly were the coffee shops, and the life at the Blue Eagle at the end was pretty sad because it was a shadow of its former self, and at some point it just wasn't even safe in many ways to go into the place.
If the downtown east side became abject, it's not only because it's an area of drug use. That would be a too simple way to think about it. It's because its lifelines were removed, and so suddenly another kind of social condition took over.
By the 1970s, Hastings Street had changed dramatically. In place of the tourists of former years, men who worked seasonal jobs in the resource industry lived in the Hastings Street hotels. The neighborhood started to cater to them and to other sojourners looking for escape in the bars, the illicit drug market, and the sex trade. The street in that period was a magnet for political activism and, by extension, Vancouver's burgeoning punk movement.
It was an odd invasion to have these white suburban kids come in and make this their home away from home, which is what happened with the Smiling Buddha. And the police didn't like it because it wasn't like the regular crew that lived down there. These were punks with political views that didn't agree with the way society was being run, and they were really outspoken about.
Compounding political, economic, and social change in Vancouver and in Canada set the stage for Hastings Street to become the downtown east side we know today. Through the 1980s and 90s, the combined health impacts of an illicit drug market and a national housing crisis became increasingly visible in the downtown east side. In 1993, the Woodward's department store closed. It was the end of an era for a beloved neon icon. It was also one of the final blows to a troubled neighborhood already suffering from the effects of long-standing commercial decline.